Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Hi, this is Risa Feldman. Welcome to Risa's Roundtable / Epicurean Exploring. It's very important that I keep that / in there. Super excited for this segment, for this month's segment. This was a situation where I happened to go to an event, and the whole healthy lifestyle, healthy living, pain management has just been on my radar recently. And I went to an event, and people were talking about eating cannabis. And not just, these aren't people, these were older people, and they weren't talking about smoking, and they started talking about, dining on it. And I started doing a little bit of research, and I found somebody from Googling and spoke to him and did a little bit more research. And I cannot believe, who I found. He's sitting here with me, but just to give you a little bit of a background, he's really considered the Julia Child of weed. That was by the Daily Beast. The Ganja Gourmet by Newsweek. The King of Edibles by Elite Daily. He's appeared on TMZ, and now he's featured on Healthy Life Network. Very exciting that he's joining me. And on June 28th, HarperCollins Publishing will launch his cookbook. It's the 420 Gourmet, The Elevated Art of Cannabis Cuisine. Now, this person really is, this cookbook, is the foodie's guide to cannabis. It's smart, it's sophisticated, it's beautifully illustrated, actually incredibly beautifully illustrated. It's for at-home chefs wanting to safely create and experience their own edibles. And he represents something where really food culture and cannabis collide. That's how I would describe it. And I can describe that because last week I had a little dinner party at my home, and he cooked for a group of 10 people before he was on it. So I've been reading my notes, and I was afraid I might start laughing. But welcome to the show, Jeff, the 420 Chef.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. You are the only cannabis chef in the world that specializes in cooking and baking with specially crafted, light tasting and tasteless. This is really important, everyone. Tasteless canna-butters and canna-oils. It's created specifically for health and wellness goals for those who choose to medicate with cannabis. And this is just something, that we're just starting to touch upon in our country.
Correct.
And some states have, medicinal, some have medicinal and recreational. And, with Jeff, meeting Jeff the 420 Chef, we'll go by the way, that's how he goes, Jeff the 420 Chef. His last name is not to be told. It's secretive.
It's the 420 Chef.
Exactly, 420 Chef. You should get that actually really changed. But, he cooks everything, makes everything for these 420 dinners, from comfort foods, desserts, snack items. But he really started cannabis, and I want to hear the story from him to help a close friend managing pain. But why don't you just jump right in and tell me your background, where you grew up, and what got you to this point to do this?
Yeah, I grew up in L.A. and actually moved to New York when I was 19 years old and stayed there for about 34 years and went through a lot. I pretty much lived an entire life and did, you name it. I was executive vice president of this company and that company, and it was just really, I led the corporate life, and I lived in what I call the New York hamster cage, where you're always on that wheel, blah, blah, Mm-hmm. And I had a major personal setback a few years ago through a divorce and whatnot. And I'm like, all right, so I lost everything financially and, monetarily, etc. But I didn't lose everything because I still have my, love of my kids and my friends and a tremendous amount of support. And I'm like, all right, God, what do I do now? And I got this thought in my head, the 420 Chef. So I go right into the computer and I'm like, check out the URL because that's how you start a business and everything. And it was available. So I'm like, all right, you know what? No one's going to want to do this at some point. I just leave it. I'll think about it, 2 weeks later, I get woken up out of like a deep sleep at like 5 a.m., get the 420 Chef. I run to my computer and somebody had just bought that URL. It was Marijuana Inc. So I was like, oh my God, now what do I do? And I got this thought, Jeff the 420 Chef. So I bought that right away. At the same time, that was around the time that I was helping a friend of mine's mother who was suffering from cancer. There was also a family member, in the family who was suffering as well. And they didn't want to smoke. But they had a prescription for cannabis. It's like, I don't want to smoke. The woman didn't want to smoke because of her lungs. The other person didn't want to smoke because it's just not something he would just want to do. And like, what do we do with this cannabis? I'm like, let's make edibles. I made edibles. I made them in college. Let me try it. And I was, working just the same way everybody else was making their edibles. I was making the butter. I was infusing it the way that, the old world method of infusing butter. And I was making cookies and brownies, and then started making other things, like appetizers and like real food. And she kept saying, the food is really great, but it always has that taste. Can't you take that taste out? And I said, I'll see what I can do. And right around the same time that I got Jeffthe420Chef is when I figured out how to take out the taste. So I made a batch of cupcakes and told a friend of mine, and he said, you have to meet my friend Justin Jones of the Daily Beast and just tell him what you're doing, just have a conversation. And we had a conversation. I brought him a cupcake, and I said, let me know what you think of this. He said, I'll let you know in the article. I'm like, no, are you doing an article? Because, yeah. So, he thought that the story was pretty compelling. And a few days later, the article came out, and the headline was, Meet the Julia Child of Weed. And that was really how it really got started. And I'm grateful, to this day for everything that, led me here. But, especially to my friend Brian who introduced me to Justin, and Justin for actually putting it out there. Once that happened, it was just a skyrocket because I actually figured out how to take out the taste of cannabis, how to keep the potency, and how to create butters and oils that really work in cooking and everyday cooking. Nice. So then you can make everything from a chicken, can of sesame chicken salad to, a full-on, your grandmother's favorite meatloaf, to gourmet chicken wings, and then all the way into dessert. So you can use, anywhere you use oil and butter, you could use it. So that was just the beginning, and the taste was pretty awesome. And then the other part of it was figuring out how to dose, and that's really important.
And for listeners, I want to point out, this is something, to keep an open mind with. Obviously, the show is Epicurean Exploring, but up until recently, I was not a marijuana user. I'm in college. I dabbled. I'm 48, so in college. But this past summer, or last summer rather, I was in Aspen, and right next to the store where it's recreationally and medically, approved, and you could just walk in. You don't need anything. And a couple times I was trying, and I was like, you know what? I was sleeping better. I felt less anxiety. Come on, I'm a Jewish girl from New Jersey. Of course I feel anxiety. And I've tried, the Ativans or the Valiums, but I got to be honest, I much rather, I decided, take something that's natural. And I was finding, though, with some of the edibles, and it was just fun to dabble in it. So there was sucking candies, there was cakes, there was cookies, there was chocolate bars, there was sodas, there was, you name it, it was coming in it. But I was tasting that taste, the taste of pot and marijuana, and I didn't love it. So when I heard about this, it was really interesting, but more so because of the fact that people who truly can be helped, and we'll have another guest on the show to talk about that also, but that was what your whole premise. This isn't about, hey, let's have dinner parties and everyone let's just get high. This is not what it's about. This truly is, the concept is regarding how can, what are you saying, people who don't want to smoke but need some, whether it's for anxiety, for sleeping, for joint pain, for you name it, for
it goes much further, cancer, tumors,
tumors. This is really an amazing thing, and to be able to dine with it, and the fact that we'll talk, Jeff, you'll tell us about this whole dosage calculator, but the whole reason why I stopped was dosing means, for those listeners, the amount that you're taking, and someone like myself, say, all I would ever want to do is probably 10 milligrams to, say, 15 of any kind. And then, Jeff, taken from here, you figured out a way to dose and take it from there with what you...
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but a lot of times you go into dispensaries and you buy yourself an edible, and the edible could be a brownie, it could be a cookie, it could be a candy, it could be a number of things that are coming out in the marketplace, and finally, there's some very, very reputable, responsible edibles companies that are coming out with fantastic tasting edibles, but also dosed properly. When I say dosed properly, if you buy a cookie that's 100 milligrams, that's 10 doses in one cookie.
And you never want to have that. And if you don't know about it, this is where the education comes forward.
Correct.
If you don't know, someone might eat the whole cookie, and I could see, just opening up the package and eating the whole cookie. And, when you do go into the places, at least in Colorado, they do talk to you about it before. You just don't walk in. They do ask you. But, it would be very easy to see a cookie and eat it all. But, again, it's only you want to eat a tenth of that cookie if it's 100 milligrams. And this is something that you've become an expert in, and it's very important to know your dosing, especially the people that you're cooking for.
Right.
And then you're...
And most people, do fine with anywhere from, 7 to 10 milligrams, even 5 milligrams. They don't understand. People are like, oh, I'm buying a 100 milligram cookie. It's going to be so awesome. I'm going to get totally wasted. That's not good. That's not what you want. I mean, you'll get a little too wasted and you'll have a terrible edible experience. So what I teach people how to do is how to do something that I do when I cook, which is called layered microdosing. So each one of my cookies is like 2 milligrams. But that's because my cookies taste so good. And you want to make sure that you can have 5 cookies if you want and dose yourself and have 10 milligrams. But if you're going to, a dispensary and buying a commercial cookie or brownie or whatever you're going to buy, thank God it doesn't taste so good because you don't want to eat the whole cookie.
Right.
But, sometimes some people do, and then, then they have a bad experience, or they think, oh, if I eat more, I'll have a better experience. It doesn't work that way.
And we'll explain more, but we'll get into it. It was really interesting. The one event that I did go to, and I was there work-wise to critique a VIP area, and it was a cannabis festival, and I was so excited just to experience it. And I went, and I had no idea. I saw they had cannabis-infused popcorn, they had lasagna, they had tiramisu, they had these French macaroons, and I mean, I come from old school where all we ever made was, as a kid, meaning in college, pot brownies. I mean, that was it. The extent was pot brownies. So when I started to see French macaroons infused in tiramisu, and I was like, where have I been all these years? And then I was thinking, well, who's buying this? Who's the consumer? Because when everyone still thinks of pot, as a matter of fact, when I was just home in New Jersey, and I told my folks I was visiting them, and I was coming back here for this dinner party, my mother kept repeating, saying, Risa, are you sure you're not going to get arrested? Or Risa, and I kept saying, Mom, it's illegal. It's illegal. And I do have something that I got from certification that says that it would help me sleep if I get it. So everyone who came to this dinner party had to have a medical approval.
Right.
So that was the one thing they all have to. But, my dad's calling me, my pothead daughter, and then he's winking at me. And my dad is a chemist and, very PhD, and he kept winking. And my mom kept saying to me, well, make sure your friends don't have any in the car if they leave. And I kept, trying to still let my mother understand that it is illegal. So Flora did not get arrested. If you see, we were able to do it. It was okay.
Well, it's also, I don't charge for it.
You don't charge, exactly.
Right.
No.
And specifically, I love when I can help somebody who's ill, and teach them how to do it and stuff. And, it's all about, sure, you pay for the ingredients, but other than that, I do it because I want to teach people how to do it right. And my whole motto is do it yourself, do it right. Because you can buy anything commercially, but you're not going to have that same experience if you buy a commercial edible that you will as if you actually make the edible yourself. And you know exactly what's going into it, and you know your dosing. So, dosing was a big issue, and I figured out early on how to understand how many milligrams of THC and CBD, because CBD is a non-psychoactive compound, and you want to have that.
I wanted to just say that one more time a little slower, just so people listening can understand the difference between the two.
Right. So there are two major compounds. Actually, I'll just talk a little about cannabis for a minute. You've got THC, which is psychoactive. Everybody knows about THC.
So the THC is what gets you high.
Correct. Yep. That's what gets you high. Mm-hmm. The other cannabinoid compound is CBD. Mm-hmm. That's cannabidiol. And CBD does not get you high, but it also has very potent medicinal effects. When you have the THC and CBD together, that begins the entourage effect. So there are most strains today in the dispensaries are high THC and either very low or no CBD. Now, recently they started coming out with higher CBD and a lower THC, which is more for the medicinal patient that doesn't really want to feel the psychoactive effects. Mm-hmm. But there's something really important in cannabis that people are just now finding out about, and that's terpenes. And the terpene profile is really important. The terpenes basically are the oils and the flavonoids. What you smell and what you taste in the cannabis are the terpenes, and they're very important. The cool thing about what I do is the terpenes stay in the butter and the oil. Like, when you smell my oil, I think you smelled it when we cooked. When you smell my butter and oil, you still can smell that it does have cannabis in it. It's just not
scent,
correct.
It's
it's
a
not
little bit of a light scent.
It's not like a typical cannabis, which is like overpowering. But that's because they have all the impurities in it. We can talk about that a little later. But I take all those out. So what you're really getting are, the terpenes, and then you're getting the, the CBD and the THC, and all of those things combined. Basically, they come together for the entourage effect, and that's really what helps you feel better. And there's a whole scientific way that these things work within your endocannabinoid system. So we all have within our bodies something called an endocannabinoid system, and that keeps us in balance or homeostasis. When you have a break in that system, that's when you start getting ill. So there are certain receptors that adhere to the endocannabinoid system. You have a CB1 receptor and a CB2 receptor. The CB1 receptor, the THC sticks to, right? The CBD sticks to the CB2 receptor. So imagine if you had, let's say, a ring within your body, and it's all humming along really nicely. You're fine. It's homeostasis. You're in balance. You feel great. But if there's a break in that ring, that's when you start feeling sick, right? So, if there's a break here, maybe you have fibromyalgia. If there's a break here, maybe you have endometriosis. If there's a break here, maybe you suffer from migraines. Or a break here, maybe it's ADD, whatever. So, or cancer or tumors. So what happens is the CB2 receptor actually plugs that hole, right? It attaches itself to your endocannabinoid system where it needs to be. And it only activates when you're ill.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in medical class. Yeah, that's truly, truly interesting.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research on it. This came from a Dr. Raphael Meshulam. He's the granddaddy of cannabis research. He's been doing it for, I think, over 40 years in Israel. When we couldn't do cannabis research here, he was doing the research in Israel. And pretty much everything that we know up till now, because now we've just started studying it, has come from him and his studies. And doctors like him. That's
so interesting, and it actually, it makes sense too if it's able to link to that. What do you think? Do you think there's other than the marijuana plant, other plants, and obviously there's some types of mushrooms, but other plants that we don't know about yet that if you do cook with them or whatnot, you would get the same effect, and we just haven't stumbled across it?
Maybe.
It's out there and we don't know. Like
it could be.
You could eat a little, a daisy, and it would do the same, or if it would, people probably were always trying different.
I don't know. A lot of what we know for the most part about, what we have, right? Nothing comes close to cannabis. Cannabis is the only substance on the planet that can help so many, I won't say treat, but that can help with so many different ailments, right? You can build houses with hemp, right? There's hemp houses now. You can use it for paper and fuel. It's incredible.
Now, what's the difference between hemp and cannabis?
So hemp is it's a much higher CBD component in it, very, very low THC. Same plant family. It's just, it doesn't have, it does have a bit of THC from what I understand, but I haven't done a lot of research into hemp. But, there's a whole side of it, and the hemp guys are the people that are putting out CBD right now.
Okay.
So it's higher potency in CBD.
And I know there's clothing, and I know there's...
Sure, you're right. Yeah.
It just seems like...
But it's the same plant. It's the same plant.
So it's just a different part of the plant?
Yeah, well, no, it's the same. So there's certain plants, and as you know, there's different strains, right? There's different strains of cannabis, right? So you just keep going down the line, and hemp is sort of like, as you get, higher CBD, lower THC, but it's the same plant family.
Right. So even in describing that, because there's all different strains, so there's the cannabis, and then there's sativa. Or I'm sorry, there's indica
and there's sativa.
How much I really know my stuff.
Yeah.
There's indica and then there's sativa.
Right, which by the way,
cannabis.
which by the way, it truly does. The only thing indica and sativa truly mean is a part of the world where it comes from.
Okay.
And ultimately now we're now going along the lines where indica means that it is a strain that's going to give you effects that are calming.
Right.
More chill, couch lock, they relieves anxiety, helps you sleep, etc. The other side are the sativas, creative, focused, they both give you euphoric feeling, but The sativas are more, for the energetic, creative person who really just want to stay on point and then sort of just like fade towards the end.
Right.
But it used to just be where the plant comes from. Now we're changing the nomenclature.
So people understand.
That a sativa is more, uplifting, and an indica is more sedating and relaxing.
And then the hybrid is just a little bit of both.
Right. And some hybrids are sativa dominant, some hybrids are indica dominant. But the truth is, the feeling comes from the trichomes and when the plant was harvested. If it was harvested early on in its maturity, right, when the trichomes are clear to milky, you get a much more sativa feeling. And if it's harvested when the trichomes are amber, it's a much more indica feeling. So you might have a plant that's a sativa plant, quote unquote, but if you harvested it late in its maturity, when it was like overripe, then you're going to get a total indica feeling.
Yeah, this is just like wine. Yeah. I mean, it's the same as this is like wines and grapes, and what depends upon the type of grape and the season it was, and I mean, this really comes down to a
you really need to know.
You need to know the farming of it. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we are coming back with Jeffthe420Chef, Risa's Roundtable, Epicurean Exploring, and I can't wait to get back and continue this conversation because it's really interesting to me and exciting. We'll be right back.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Welcome back to Risa's Roundtable, Epicurean Exploring. With my guest, we have Jeffthe420Chef. And I wanted to point out, too, to listeners to go to risafeldman.com, and you'll be able to see pictures. You can also, from this dinner, as well as other items that he makes and dishes, you can go to his Instagram and his site, which is
Jeffthe420Chef. So Jeffthe420Chef on Instagram and Jeffthe420Chef.com.
All across the board, Jeffthe420Chef. So
except for Twitter. Twitter is Jeff_the420Chef.
There we go. Did someone have it? Do you have to do that?
Yeah, they just I don't know. They just made me do it. I don't know why.
I'm all different names all over and I can't remember. I'm like Travel with Risa, Travel with Ree, Epicurean Exploring. So, but we were just talking about really everything. I mean, when I say we were talking about all the different strains of cannabis and. Jeff, you invented the light tasting, and this is what's interesting, a tasteless Canna-butter and Canna-oil. And this is, for anyone who's ever tried to cook with cannabis before, somehow you always, it still tastes like it. And even in the edibles in the stores now, whether in the dispensaries rather, not a store, but a dispensary, you can try chocolate bars, you could try everything, and they still have, even the sucking candies, you still taste like you're sucking on cannabis, like that skunky taste or that, and again, I don't know too much about it, but that's from my mom. I really smoked ever in the past, so this is all brand new for me, Flora. So, when I did tell you that it was dirt, it was in my room when I was a kid. I think I said it was dirt I was thinking or something, I don't know. But, you have something called the THC and the CBD calculator app. And it's very specific with a dosing system, which is for people so they know, as well as you know how much to put in it. And what, you have this pedigree that you've created, but how do you separate the THC from the CBD? Right. How do you separate that? And
you can't separate.
Or how do you know how much to put in each? What does that calculator do?
So no, you can't separate the CBD from the THC, but you can separate the cannabinoids from the leaf. So what happens is when you infuse butter or oil, the cannabinoids are inside the trichomes. Imagine the trichomes look like little glass mushrooms.
It sounds like a science fiction movie, like the trichomes against the cannabinoids, and I'm going to go.
Well, no, but the cannabinoids are like live inside the trichomes,
the cannabinoids live inside.
Right. So the trichomes and the cannabinoids, everything lives inside the trichomes. So you want to take the trichomes and you want to take them off the leaf.
Okay.
Into the butter and oil. That's how you're infusing the butter and oil.
Okay, I got it. All
so
right.
That's just the beginning, but we'll go into more.
But yeah, and again, the cookbook that's launching, which is part of HarperCollins, which is very exciting that you, by the way, congratulations.
Thank
and
you,
also,
thank you.
I just want to point out that you recently won. It was a butter sort of test.
I didn't win. Yeah, I mean,
not win, but it was pointed out that yours was really good.
Yeah. The High Times did a test of my butter and my butter technique compared to the typical. There's like 3 other techniques, and they're just like this is the new way to make butter.
Exactly. And the cookbook is called The 420 Gourmet: The Elevated Art of Cannabis Cuisine. But we'll continue on, that we're still talking about this. But, the goal, or tell me, what is the goal of now all of this cooking? Is it more to sell the cookbooks? Is it to do private, tastings all over the country? Is it what is your goal right now?
Well, look, my goal has always been and is still do it yourself, do it right. All I want to do is teach people how to do it themselves and do it right.
I feel like that should be a political slogan for the person who's going to come forward and save us. It should be do it yourself, do it right. That sounds like,
I mean, look, I'm a foodie and I'm a hack. I'm both a foodie and a hack. Yeah. And, I wanted to learn how to do it myself and do it right. And so many people need to learn how to do that. And, the cookbook gives you the recipes. There's a calculator. There's 2 issues with the calculator. The first thing is, the good news is, the calculator is available on my website, Jeffthe420Chef.com. If you go to the calculator tab on there, you can actually access the calculator. It's free. It's a line format calculator on the website right now, and we've been trying to get an app approved by Apple. It was submitted quite a while ago. It's been rejected because they're saying that it violates their terms of service because it has to do with cannabis, and we just got the rejection actually yesterday. But we're fighting it because there are a lot of cannabis companies that have apps out there, and this is truly something that people need. When you're truly medicating with cannabis, if you're a patient medicating with cannabis, you need to know how many milligrams of THC and CBD are in your edibles.
You're doing the safest way, the most. I mean, this is someone, sitting here, when people still old school think of, hey, cooking with cannabis, they're just picturing, this total, whatever the connotation is. And you're truly someone who has fantastic dishes. You've learned a technique that is fantastic. And again, I'm saying this because I sampled it and had an amazing time. But this is something that you've learned and you've created. I mean, it took a lot of research, you said, for years trying to figure out how to... This wasn't like one day, you roll out of bed and, hey, this is what I did.
It took me 18 months. It took me 18 months to figure out how to take out the taste.
Well, that's the thing. It's still remarkable to me. And it is in your cookbook. So everyone who's, to buy the cookbook, he teaches it. This isn't someone who's trying to keep this mysterious recipe of how does he do it. The whole thing is, I forgot the logo. Like,
do it yourself, do it right.
Do it right. There you go. Do it yourself, do it right. And you're trying to share. And again, when you don't charge, you really want to help people. And that's where it's coming from, a place of this can help you. And you don't have to sit there and smoke out. And, for kids who, my gosh, what goes on with seizures and how much, if all they did is eat some, or take some, ingest some of this, it stops the seizures. I mean, all the case studies that we've seen, and it's truly incredible. And it's too bad it's not every single state, because there's nothing that could help some of these kids. They're all moving to places and I would do that if I had a child who needed it. I'd go to a state, and here's a natural way to help people with cancer, with AIDS, with, I mean, you name anything they're nauseous from, chemotherapy.
Right, but the issue, unfortunately, with the government and is that this is all anecdotal. I mean, I could give you an amazing example. There's this little 10-year-old boy that I've been cooking for. I met his mom when he was in a very, very, very bad place, and she said, "Can you please get me some cannabis oil, and can you teach me how to, make cookies and brownies and, and all the things that a lot of people ask me to do?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And I met him, and he was in not a good place, and he started on Canna-oil. She went through Canna Kids, and they actually gave her, the right oils that he would need for his condition. And to augment that, I bake cookies for him on a weekly basis. And the cookies help for 2 reasons. One, they have cannabis in them, so they're actually helping medicinally. But 2, they taste great. He loves eating them. And these are really one of the very few things he eats to start getting his energy back and to gain weight, because a big issue when you have chemo is you have no appetite, you don't want to eat, you lose all this weight, and chemo kills more people than pretty much anything else when it comes to cancer. So we put him on the oils, and all of a sudden I get a text from her saying, "You're never going to believe this, but we just got his scans back, and it's remarkable. He only has a lesion on his femur left." was like, wow, that's pretty awesome, And then he was like, Mom, I'm feeling, much better now. I'm not going to do the cannabis oil anymore because it makes me feel funny. And she said, okay, great, because maybe it was from the chemo or the radiation or the stem cells. Nobody knows. But then all of a sudden he had a major relapse. And the cancer came back much more aggressively than before. So right away she's like, please, we got to get him back on the oils. We got to start making cookies again. I visited him in the hospital, and it was heartbreaking because I saw this vibrant kid that had actually gotten back into his vibrancy, and like, oh my God! And then all of a sudden he's back in that hospital bed, and he had lost all this weight, and he finally got out of the hospital, thank God, and he started with the cookies, and got back on the oil. And his mom just contacted me and said, he's doing so much better. I can honestly, I can say now that cannabis has been a very big factor in this, and we'll see how it keeps going. But ultimately, it's an amazingly compelling story. Right. And just seeing him go from really in a terrible place where to where he is now has been really incredible.
No, that's fantastic. I love that. You hear stories like that, and it's really wonderful. And then also the people like you who and are out there to do such wonderful things and are open-minded, and you're progressive. And
thank you.
We're going to take a commercial break, and then we're going to come back with someone that maybe could help you with that the legal aspect of it, because we are coming back again to Risa's Roundtable, Epicurean Exploring, and Jeffthe420Chef. We'll be right back.
What does HealthyLife.net and Amazon.com have in common? Well, they're both available on the Internet. They both give great value. But most important, most of our positive program hosts and guests are accomplished authors, and their books are available from, you got it, Amazon.com. Now, it even gets better than that, because when you're listening on air to a HealthyLife.net host or guest, you can go directly to Amazon.com, and you can order your book while you're still listening to your favorite HealthyLife.net program. So when you hear an author you like, go to the homepage of HealthyLife.net and click on Amazon.com.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Risa's Roundtable and Epicurean Exploring. We've been talking to Jeffthe420Chef. And now coming back, we have another guest, someone who was also at my little dinner party. And, there's an organization that was started to help spread awareness via personal stories of former professional athletes through their use of medical marijuana. And, these stories that they all have are really, really powerful stories. And the name of this organization is called the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. And this organization helps former athletes and hopefully will change the minds in the process of everyone who's out there in terms of government and just in terms of your consumer, your everyday consumer. And some of these athletes, we have the former NFL tight end, who's Boo Williams, who suffered from some depression and anxiety, a retired UFC fighter, Kyle Kingsbury, a Heisman Trophy winner NFL, Ricky Williams. All of these people are ones who have come forward, along with many, many, many others who have said that cannabis does help them. And just more and more professional athletes are coming out with their own personal stories, as I said, of how they have used medical cannabis to help them mainly beat their painkiller addiction. And that's what this Gridiron is really about, is helping or really going to bat for those that are athletes who want to, we're going to introduce a guest, and he'll be able to, I don't know why I'm sitting here trying to explain it when this is what he does, but leading the Gridiron Coalition is someone by the name of Mike Sindrich, and he's one of California's top cannabis attorneys. He's a principal attorney at the law offices of Michael Sindrich, and also Green Capital Ventures, and co-founder and managing member of the Gridiron Coalition. Past several years, he's been focused on consulting with those involved in California's medical cannabis industry. I'm just going to jump right in because I know I'm babbling, and I really want to hear from you, Mike. Just, tell me a little bit about what the Gridiron Coalition does.
Well, thank you for the introduction. The Gridiron Cannabis Coalition, we're an organization of current and former retired athletes, mostly NFL football players, and we have a focus on advancing cannabis as a medicine to treat conditions that athletes suffer as a result of their careers, both physical conditions as well as brain-related injuries. We do that through several different functions, but really education, treatment, and research is what we're focused on right now. We attend conferences throughout the United States, put on panels of NFL players, give them an opportunity to talk about their experiences while playing in the NFL, experiences with the other substances and prescriptions that they have been prescribed for many of them decades, and these are prescriptions that they rely upon in order to play the game and get back out on the field. And also talk about cannabis use in the NFL and how the league, the owners, coaches, other players feel about cannabis, and really just give these guys an opportunity to get in front of the public and be honest and speak about their experiences. And with that, we're really trying to raise awareness as to the fact that these players are using cannabis. They have been using cannabis. Cannabis is a medicine that, for many of them, performs functions that normal prescription medications can't perform. And so that's something that we're strongly focused on. And also we are in the process of establishing treatment centers throughout the United States, and we're looking at a couple of other countries as well, places where current and former players can go to be in a medical environment, detox off of the cocktails or prescriptions that they're on, be introduced to natural, holistic-based treatments, specifically cannabis-based treatment methods, different types of cannabis-based medicines, also other health products. We're really focused on the body, the mind, and really healthy eating and just a healthy way of life to really assist these players. And ultimately, our hope is to gather the data, bring doctors on board, and really study how cannabis is helping these athletes, gather this data and present it to the NFL. And our ultimate goal is to change the NFL substance abuse policy when it comes to cannabis, and hopefully the NFL will eventually adopt some policies that allow their players to medicate, because we believe that cannabis-based medicines perform several functions that the normal medications can't, and that's really basically what we're focused on right now.
Well, I think you're doing fantastic work, and I heard how I even had Michael on the show is I heard a panel, the Gridiron Coalition panel, at an event, and given that my background was as a sports agent, I really was interested in it. And I represented 14 NFL quarterbacks back in the day, and knowing what they went through and their injuries, not just them, but obviously all the team members, and seeing the amount of drugs that they were given just to obviously get back in the game, and whether they're cortisone shots, whether they were, Percocets and Oxycontin, whatever it was, a lot of painkillers, and, that's fine. They're athletes and they have to, to a degree, so I understand, but what's terrible is that they're not giving an option, and these painkillers are so highly addictive, but they also can cause some extreme depression with it, and then when their careers are over, so, if they play, it's only a couple of years that all these guys can play for, and then when their game is over, all of a sudden they're still addicted to these painkillers, which they had to take really every day, and that's where, a situation comes in where how do they wean off of it, and what can the pain is still there, but what can take the place of it, and it's not just for physical injury, but it could be for the anxiety and for the, like I was saying, I would so much rather, at the end of the day, for me, have an edible or smoke a little bit, and then rather than have 3 glasses of wine, or instead of, taking a Valium. Absolutely. And it should be, of course, my opinion, it should actually be an option. And it's incredible that the NFL doesn't recognize it in states at least that are medicinally acceptable at this point, that they're not, when they're considering it an enhancement drug. And I cannot understand how, if anyone who's ever, smoked before or had it in any way, shape, or form, anyway, doesn't enhance, obviously, your physical skill. If anything, you're slow down. I got pulled over once, and I was concentrating, and I had just smoked a little bit, and I got pulled over because the policeman said that I was driving too slow. And he said, ma'am, you really need to pick up the pace. You never hear, you hear of drunk drivers. You hear of, all these agitation drugs that, cocaine, you get agitated. Obviously, heroin. This is completely different. You're so just a relaxed state, and you're still in your right mind, and you might be a little bit slower. So why they're still calling it an enhancement drug is just crazy to me, Michael. Like, why is that? What's your view? I mean, what sort of enhancement can it give?
Well, I think it enhances people's ability to focus, but that's more of a result of they may for example, someone who has attention deficit disorder may be able to smoke cannabis and perform and function the way that someone who doesn't have ADD functions, and so I don't necessarily think it's performance enhancing. It basically neutralizes some of the issues that we have that may actually hold us back on a regular basis. I mean, it's being used as a medicine, and the medicine that people, the conditions that people are using it for, they're oftentimes getting prescribed other medications, and they just happen to choose to take cannabis. So I definitely don't think it's a performance-enhancing substance.
All right. And then, do you feel that there's a place, when we come back, I just want to real quick an answer, but whether there's a place for state regulation for medical cannabis, for labeling and dosing in the ones that are sold in the dispensaries, because, you don't, where
well, okay, starting January 2018.
Oh, there we go. That's my answer.
Start seeing it, yeah.
Well, we're going to come right back, and again, we'll come right back to continue talking. We have Michael Sindrus, who's the attorney and helping with the entire Gridiron Cannabis Coalition that he founded, and with Jeff, the 420 Chef. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Risa's Roundtable, Epicurean Exploring. And once again, we're with Jeff, the 420 Chef, and Michael Sindrich, who is an attorney who represents the Gridiron Coalition, which is for professional athletes and really just professional athletes and their ability to use medicinal marijuana in recovery or up against what the future can hold in states that it is allowed, and hopefully the NFL, working with the NFL to maybe legalize it, that they could choose that instead of painkiller drugs. But we didn't discuss the dishes. This is the exciting part.
It's fun.
Yes, exactly. At the dinner party, I had a few ex-NFL players who are part of the Gridiron Coalition, Sean Phillips, and we had Chris Cluey, and we had Boo Williams there, and along with Michael, who's on the line. And, Tell us, Chef, about the first thing we had.
So we started off with a 420 Irish cream, which is something I invented, which is it's a non-alcoholic version of Irish cream, but it's infused. So it actually has very popular. There's this one woman who I cook for who's an alcoholic, and she hasn't alcohol in years, and now she loves 420 Irish cream because it's not alcoholic, but it's infused, so she can take that to alleviate some of her anxieties, etc. at the end of the day. We started off with that, and then we had a Canna sesame chicken salad, and then we had the hazy Thai wings.
And, with everyone, just so you know how we had it set up, there were, wings were out, and it might say each wing that you have was 1 milligram.
Correct.
So you knew if you wanted to take 5 wings, it would be 5 milligrams. You could add it up. And then he had, where the I'm trying to think, maybe the eggplant parmesan, which we had, and it would say how much is it helping. So maybe that was 2 milligrams or 3. So you were able to know, like mix and match, like an a la carte menu. Okay, I can have a little bit of this, and that's 3. I have a little bit of here. The drink is, 1 to 2 milligrams. So you can sort of understand where, because I kept saying, well, how do you know if I could just keep eating? And then, of course, we had regular virgin food without any cannabis infused to fill up on more. But
I think the fun part also is, the way it's served is, wings are easy, because I can for sure tell you that each wing is 1 to 1.5 milligrams, because I I know how much of the Canna-oil I put into each individual wing when I made it.
Right.
So it's not as I put it into the sauce and flipped it around, and one wing's going to get 3 milligrams and one's going to get 1 milligram. Each wing was individually infused. The other thing is, like the eggplant parmesan, if you notice, there were 9 little piles of the eggplant parm, right? So you had 9 little stacks.
Right.
Well, each one of those stacks, I was able to infuse each one individually, so it was only 2 milligrams.
Right.
Or whatever it was, I don't remember.
Right.
It was like, party was last week. I've done since then a few parties, so, a few events. I just came back from Oakland where I did California Cannabis Week and the High Times and political luncheon, believe it or not, and, a lot of really fun stuff. So kind of gets mixed up in my head. But ultimately, everything that I dose, specifically exactly how many milligrams of THC you're putting into your system. Now, if you want CBD, if you're medicating with CBD, a higher CBD, low THC, it's the same exact thing. You'll know how many. Except the difference between THC and CBD is you can't overdo CBD. If you way overdo CBD, maybe you'll fall asleep.
Right.
But if you overdo THC just by a little, you start feeling anxious and paranoid, and you start having, these really negative experiences, and that's when a lot of people say, oh my God, edibles, I can never do it again. It was terrible. I was in a black hole. It's like, I wanted to go to the hospital if I was going to die. But if you do it right and you stick with 10 milligrams seems to be the magic number. I mean, I don't know how many events I've done now, cooking for people. I cook for, I would say, probably close to 1,000 people ultimately.
Right. Well, these guys, it's funny as having these NFL players at the house, and they're 6'5" and 6 next to us. So the 10,
but they did fine. They were great. Nobody had too little. Nobody had too much.
Right. I'm just asking, Michael, did you, in your experience, in any of the times that you've had edibles, for me, this is the first time that I really tasted nothing in every single dish. How did you? Did you taste the cannabis at all?
No, absolutely not. And honestly, I think that, with what we're seeing across the United States right now, one of the big issues with edibles is the dosage control. And some of the worst horror stories that we're hearing from these states that have legalized cannabis are with regards to edibles. So, we're seeing more and more people talk about microdosing, and really microdosing is the ability to receive the medicinal qualities of cannabis without actually having to get high, and especially not get to the point that Jeff was talking about, where you just want to go to bed and want everyone to leave you alone. So I think that that's what I saw at the dinner, was that everything was microdosed to the point to where you could really just completely stop yourself and not be not be high or stoned, and really just be able to get the medicinal aspects of the medicine.
Exactly, and it can taste great too.
And it was a lot of fun, right?
Exactly, and again, I just want to point out that you can go to risafeldman.com and see pictures. The dishes we had. Eggplant parmesan. We had
mac and cheese.
We had
the hazy Thai wings. We had the canna sesame
beautiful
salad.
The apple roses. It looked like he made this beautiful canna apple roses, and it looks like a rose, and it was made out of apples. And I actually took a video because I wanted to remember how to make it because it was so beautiful. Let alone that it was infused, but. The drink was amazing. Everything. I will tell you, if you want to have a successful dinner party, everyone do a little bit of cannabis infused, and you're really going to...
Oh, yeah, and then we ended it with a really fun game, right? We did the miracle fruit,
we did this thing, which Michael was part of, that miracle fruit, where you tasted something, and you would taste the lump. It was something that you put on your tongue.
So it comes from a miracle fruit after there's something called the miracle fruit.
It's called the miracle fruit,
right.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, this fruit changes your taste buds and flips them on their head. So something that's supposed to taste very sour and bitter is really sweet, like a lemon. Right. And we had people eating lemons, including the peel. So you can imagine these football players, standing there eating lemons with the peel and loving it.
And then I remember tasting something that you really would like to taste, and having a glass of wine and thinking that this, Pinot Noir tasted exactly like a port because it was so sweet, and that was kind of fun, to do, and that was just the fun part. But again, I want everyone who's listening, keep an open mind moving forward. Know that cannabis is out there. It's not, there's uses for it, not just to get high. The same thing with, when I say that, keep an open mind, because it really does truly help those that need help. There are options to painkillers. There are options to anxiety pills. There are options, and it is a very personal opinion, but I think our country is getting there slowly, and I hope it gets there faster, because there's people in need that aren't able to help themselves. And with people like Michael and with, Jeff, I think we'll get there that much faster with having them in the industry and knowing what they're about. And so everyone, again, you got to go to Jeffthe420Chef.com. Buy the book. The book is fantastic. His dishes are fantastic. And Michael, Gridiron Coalition, if people want to hear more about how to get involved.
Yes, GridironCannabis.com, or you can check out our Facebook page.
Sounds great. And thank you again, both guys. Can't wait to hang out again and for the next dinner party.
I had a great time. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you both.
Thanks. Take care.